So let's begin with step one, the snap suggestion. This snaps the viewer to attention with the use of a pattern interrupt and the use of a suggestion. That's why it's called the snap suggestion. The word snap is used because it's very similar to how you would feel if you walked into a room and snapped your fingers in the middle of a conversation. It gets people's attention. Now, this is the most creative element in a video sales letter. And I think it's even more creative than coming up with a nightmare story, for example. The most creative element in a video sales letter. So a lot of people are kind of like a little afraid of this. They're saying, oh, maybe I'm not creative enough to come up with something so clever. Yes, you are, because we figured out a formula and it's pretty easy. You'll be impressed. Okay, the optional introduction. This is the simplest part. If you are the person behind the product or service, you should consider using this. In other words, if you are a guy or a gal who wrote a book, created a video, as the president of a service-related company, and you want to address your viewers as the president and CEO of that company, this is something that's very important to do. Don't use this, however, if you're selling something where you're not the face of the product or service that you're offering. In other words, if you're just doing this as a marketing director for a big company, this probably will not work well for you. And it is simple as this. There's nothing more to this. Hi, I'm John. I usually don't give my last name. I'll introduce myself again later in the video. We'll cover where to do that. But I'll just say, hey, I'm John. So I'll either say hi or hey, I'm John. That's it, your first name. Okay, another form of interrupt is called a third-party video sales letter. Now, that's not technically a pattern interrupt, but it's pretty much going to serve as one for you. And there's so many benefits to doing a third-party VSL. And what I mean by that is, let's say that your name is John and you want to write a weight loss video sales letter like I've done. However, for whatever reason, you decide that either you don't have a great nightmare story, or you don't have a voice that you like, or that you just don't feel like being the face of this video sales letter. Well, a few years back, we tested, in fact, I was one of the first people to test this, if not the first person to test this, for one of the top ClickBank fitness offers. I wrote a video sales letter to replace his current sales letter, which was the top selling product on ClickBank at the time, and we doubled his conversions by doing this. And all I did was change it to being the third person. I read it as myself, told my story and how his product, which it did, helped me lose weight. Well, that ended up being a smash hit. And since then, a lot of people have done third-party VSLs on purpose. I'll actually encourage you to do that. In fact, in the future, I may put together tutorials specifically on how to do third-party video sales letters. And if you're looking at this right now, it might already be in the bonus section, so you might want to check that out. But I'm going to cover probably enough of it right now for what you need to really get started. Let me give you a great example of how a third-party VSL just really killed it for a client of mine. He was creating a supplement video sales letter, and he didn't want to use his own story. He wanted to use a combination of stories from clients and people that have taken the product. And, like they do in Hollywood when recreating a historical movie, he basically wanted to create what's called a composite character. And as long as that composite character has truthful elements, from a few different sources, and you have their okay, it should be fine for you to do this. But you're always going to want to check with your attorney, as FTC regulations are changing all the time. But as of today, it's fine in most industries. And in my client's example, he created Ryan. And Ryan was a guy that formerly had a heart condition who now has this healthy heart. And the supplement that they sell helped him on his path to getting that healthy heart. In fact, we used a combination of that interrupt, which is, it's not really technically an interrupt. Like I said, a third-party VSL isn't one, but we used an illustration, an animation interrupt, which I'm going to cover in a moment. And that's a style of pattern interrupt that's really, it's fairly new. It took off about a few years ago, but now using it just as an interrupt is really taking off, and it's much less expensive to do than the entire animated videos were, which were take off on video sales letters. So I'll cover all that in just a moment, but this really made it super powerful. Now, what you would want to do is introduce your first name of the character just as you normally would. For example, in this case, and by the way, you can mix that with video and animation like I just said. In this case, we just said, hi, I'm Ryan. Okay, same way. In other words, if it was John, I'd change it to Ryan or Cindy or whomever it would be. Now, there's a lot of benefits to doing a third-party VSL. First of all, it's the built-in social proof. I mean, this is basically social proof sketched into the entire video sales letter. And social proof is one of your best friends when it comes to making a sale. Have no doubt about that. The second is it allows you more creative leeway. So when it comes to things like nightmare stories, you can add a little bit of fictional elements to it that make it more powerful, as long as you ethically know that it's really close to the real story and that the story that you're drawing from has literal inspiration. So don't go hog wild and say, yeah, I weighed 300 pounds and now I'm a svelte 75 pounds. I mean, that's not true. That's not what I'm getting at all. So you want to stick as close to the truth as you can, obviously. And then it sets up for what I call the hero's introduction. And this is a way that the third person can introduce you later in the video sales letter to give you so much more credential than you could ever give yourself. For one thing, the third person would say, I learned everything I know about blank, whatever the blank is, from you. Whatever either you or your company or whatever it may be. You're the expert. He's only sharing what the expert taught him or her. And this really does establish you as a true hero. And a side note, it's a good idea if you get a non-disclosure document, if you choose specific people to base your third-party VSL on, just to ensure your financial and legal safety. Always check with your attorney regarding this stuff. Then we get into the pattern interrupt. And here's where things get fun. A pattern interrupt disengages your viewer's mind momentarily and grabs their attention via curiosity. And I want you to think of snapping your fingers during a conversation. So picture this. Walk up to a group of friends that you know hopefully really well, and they're having a conversation. And you just walk up into the middle of the conversation and go, what's going to happen in that conversation if you snap loud enough? Everyone will stop. And they will look at you like you have lost your mind. Okay, so I'm not suggesting that you go do this per se. Just imagine yourself doing this. Well, that is why this is called the snap suggestion. A pattern interrupt works like a snap. It works like snapping your fingers in a conversation. People are arriving at your website expecting to see something. Let's say that your product is a service-related product that deals with dry cleaning. So naturally, when they get to their site, if they're going to see an image, they're expecting to see a dry cleaning image. If you've got a weight loss product, they're expecting to see someone with abs or somebody holding out their jeans or some sort of a weight loss image, a girl with a scale, whatever. So here's what we do. We do not want to give them what they expect. And when we do not give them what they expect, we break their pattern. See, your viewer has a pattern. And when they are too comfortable in a pattern, they are too comfortable with rejecting the offer. Pattern interrupts help people become more accepting of the offer, and it builds immense curiosity. Again, we want to think forward thinking through the entire video sales letter process. You want to keep thinking forward, push the viewer forward. So if you start off with something very intriguing, very curious, very out there a little bit, you're going to have the viewer going, wait, I don't know. That's interesting. I want to see where they're going with this. It's like a plot in a good movie, except we've made it much more simple to do. Now, I'm going to cover some examples of pattern interrupts. These are fun. And then we're going to cover the anatomy of creating a pattern interrupt for yourself. Here's a pattern interrupt image example. Hi, I'm John. I use the optional introduction. And this is a fish. Okay? If someone is coming to a weight loss site, the last thing they're probably expecting to see is a fish, especially a rainbow colored fish like this one, right? The next slide says, and in a few minutes, you'll find out why this fish is the secret to your weight loss. So at this point, they're going, what, am I supposed to eat fish? Why is this fish so important? I don't get it. But I've completely interrupted their pattern. Remember the old vinyl records? I've taken the vinyl record that they are playing in their brain and just scratched it into oblivion. Okay? They are not expecting this on a diet site. And I'm using a weight loss example just because that's the industry that I primarily work in. So you can use this for any industry. It does not matter. Now notice on this slide, I'm also using the subliminal highlighting technique that you will find in the 3X VSL Toolbox video. So I'll pull out a certain word, secret. It's a very good word to use. Okay, that you highlight in red, and the subconscious mind will pick that up. So I've not only broken a pattern here, but I've set them up to expect something in the near future. In a few minutes, you're going to find out why this fish is the secret to your weight loss. Here's another example. Hi, I'm John, and this is, there's a typo here, I apologize, and this is my magic jacket. That's how that's supposed to read. Hi, I'm John, and this is my magic jacket. I don't recommend typos in VSLs on purpose, okay? So what do I mean by magic jacket? Well, no one knows yet, right? So I go on. This jacket is unique. And in a few minutes, this jacket will show you the secret to losing weight. It's almost the same wording as the fish example. All I added was this jacket is unique. Now, I want you to notice something here. I want you to notice the words that I have made red. Again, I'm using the subliminal highlighting technique. It says unique secret. When I make two words in one slide red, the brain has a tendency to look at those two words and form a sentence. So if you can do that with like best buy or, or special offer and it makes sense, do it. Well, this case, it worked out perfect. Unique secret. This is a unique secret. So, but what I'm really saying is the jacket is unique. And in a few minutes, this jacket, it's a magical jacket, is going to show you the secret to losing weight. So at this point, people are like, now they're really like, they're either confused, they're puzzled, and that's good because they've broken their pattern, but they are intrigued. They are curious. Where is he going with this? Now, you're probably wondering where I'm going with this too, and I'm going to explain how I created these pattern interrupts and how you can do the exact same thing in just a moment. Now, this is a linguistic interrupt with subliminal highlighting, and my shocking statement here is the phrase magic pill answer. If you use a linguistic interrupt, you're going to want to use something pretty much over the top, pretty shocking. So I say, hi, I'm John, and in just a few minutes, you'll discover the magic pill answer to your weight loss goals. Now, the irony here is I would go on to explain that the magic pill is actually something that you create yourself. It's not something you swallow. So I just call it the magic pill answer. It's the solution to believing that you have to take a magic pill. You don't. There are no magic pills. So the answer is there are no magic pills. I go into that later in the video. But right now, I've captured their attention big time with that pattern interrupt, a magic pill answer to weight loss. Okay, before I go into the anatomy of creating a pattern interrupt, how I created those interrupts that you just saw, the visual interrupt and the linguistic interrupt, I want to show you some more powerful alternatives that have evolved over the last couple of years, ever since the launch of the original 3X VSL product, and just so you'll have a complete understanding of what's going on out there. The very first one is called a warning interrupt. I really like this one, and it's simple to do. I want to give you an example of what that looks like. This is what you would see on the first screen, and it would last maybe 7 or 8 seconds. And what I've seen done, and what I've done myself, is read this in a kind of get a deeper voice like I have, and you go into the warning. The following presentation contains controversial material. I mean, you can actually read it like that and it works, right? But it's a very powerful way to get people to stop in their tracks. I mean, just that image alone. Now, this is about a heart supplement, and there's a guy having a heart attack, so it's a very scary kind of thing, and that's what you want. You want to kind of shock somebody into something, to snap their attention into the moment that you're trying to create. Now, what's really powerful about this is if you have a product that is controversial in any way, or is perhaps even not safe for work, warning should be used regardless. So consider this a default, pattern interrupt. Now, that does not mean that you can't use the verbal or linguistic interrupts after this warning. That's not what I'm saying. This is kind of like a double whammy interrupt strategy. So all of these, as you'll see, use the same formula that I'm about to cover to create their interrupt. They're just using variations of the theme. So I'm going to give you another one. It's called the audio countdown timer interrupt. This can be done with voice, with a headline that says your video will begin X. And here's an example of what this looks like with just the countdown and a beep. It's that simple, and that really breaks the pattern, that beep and just hearing the old style film footage and the film cranking and all that stuff. It's really kind of cool. And then you could kick right into, hi, I'm John, or hi, I'm Ted, or hi, I'm Mary, or whatever. So this is another way to grab people's attention. Now, the animation interrupt and, quite frankly, the animation style video sales letters have really exploded over the past year and a half. And I keep preaching this over and over again, and I really hope people get this. Animation is great, assuming your script is great, okay? You can have a totally crappy script, and you can animate it with Walt Disney. It's not going to help you any. So the videos that have done the best with animation usually almost always started off with a video sales letter, like just the plain text version, which we're talking about in this course. I highly, highly recommend that you start off that way, with the exception of an interrupt. You can use an animated interrupt. I'm about to show you a really good example. of an interrupt, and it's a fitness offer that and there's a lot of these out there, and you've probably seen these style videos before. But a lot of people spend like $20,000 or $30,000 getting their entire video animated. And we have seen that that's just not necessary. In fact, I have seen most people, most of my clients can spend literally a fraction of that money, animate the first 30 seconds of their video or a minute, and then come in and animate another minute or 2 minutes somewhere in the middle to break it up to create another pattern interrupt. You're not going to want to just settle for one pattern interrupt. We're going to create them throughout your video sales letter to keep people's attention. This is a fantastic way of doing that without breaking the bank. So you could literally get this done in a matter of minutes versus a 30 or 40 minute long animated cartoon, which is very, very expensive to do. So let me show you this example, which I thought was very good, of an animated style pattern interrupt.
Hi, this is Rob, and I've got kind of a weird weight loss story to share with you today. It's about how I lost pounds and pounds of stubborn fat and serious inches off my belly in just a few weeks.
Rob's video goes on and does more animation than that, but he could have just stopped right there. Actually, he has his wife come in, so I would suggest keep going maybe for another 30 or 45 seconds. But just that much of the animation is enough to grab someone's attention. And I really like the way he animated the words. That's a lot of things that was not done. Wasn't very common to be done when it first got started. It was just all animation, and then people got clever and realized that hey, that the whole video, the 3x VSL technique of having words on the screen actually works really, really well. So we need the words on the screen still. So be sure if you use that trick to animate the words, and you don't have to animate every word, of course, but just the keywords along with whatever animation that you want to use. Now, I'm going to get into the live video interrupt next, and it is one of the rare versions of video use, and I have to caution you on people who I suggest do use this and who don't. If you use this, I suggest that you have a very powerful video presence. Either it's really, you don't have to be super good looking or anything like that, but you can be. If you are, that's great. But if you're over the top, it can scare people. So in other words, one of my friends in the fitness business he's got such an over the top physique that people can't relate to him when he did a weight loss offer, because weight loss in our industry applies about 65% to women, and they were like, "What does this guy know about weight loss?" But his muscle offer worked really, really well. Now, it's not the guy I'm about to show you. I'm talking about another guy. But the point is if you're an internet marketer and you kind of look cool, you got the internet marketing vibe going for you, and you speak well on video, then yeah, a 1 minute video introduction has been shown to increase conversions on straight video sales letters. But if you do the entire thing in video, the conversions tend to drop off. There are exceptions to that rule. Brendan Burchard is a very famous internet marketer, does awesome videos, very, very good videos. And Andy Jenkins, another guy. So these guys, that's their niche. That's what they do really, really well. So for the vast majority of us, that's not going to work, and it's going to be a long, expensive production. Marie Forleo is another excellent example of someone who's fantastic on video. But what we want to do is take the power of the video that's going to be a fraction of the cost. You can literally do this with a high-def camera. You could even do it with your webcam. Really, it doesn't have to be super professional. And just do the first 30 seconds to a minute of your video sales letter. But I urge you to do what I'm about to show you, which is a guy that worked through the 3X program with me. And he put the text that we created underneath his video, which I thought was a fantastic idea. And I'll tell you why. When you see this, you'll get it. You'll read the text and look at Vince, and read the text and look at Vince. And what your head is doing is it's nodding yes all the time. So this is a technique I came up with a few years ago for another friend of mine who did a video. He didn't do a video sales, he did a video. And I suggested that he put the script of the video underneath the video. He had it to the right, and people were shaking their head no the whole time because they were looking at him and looking over at the right, and then looking at him, looking over at the right. That's shaking your head no. You might not think that matters, but it really does matter to the psychology of the sale. So watch this as a very, very short video, but you'll get the idea of how he uses this as an interrupt. And just FYI, this is coming off of a quiz that he has people take. So that's why it starts off a little odd compared to a normal video sales letter.
Hi there, it's Vince Del Monte, the Skinny Guy Savior. Thank you so much for completing the quiz. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm going to be sending you the quiz answers in just a few minutes. But before I do that, I want you to watch this super short video. I promise you this isn't one of those long, drawn-out 20 to 30-minute videos. And this video is on the 3 biggest muscle-building lies. And at the end of this video, I'm also going to show you how...
Now, notice how Vinny went into the 3 biggest muscle building lies, okay? Where does that come from? Well, it comes from the 3XVSL formula. These are the things that you want to avoid. The lies is a great way of saying that. And it really sets the user up to open the loop and go into his own story. And from there, he has one version of the video where it's mostly video, and another version of the video where he goes from there into straight VSL, which is the text on the screen like you're seeing now. And he'll come back in occasionally when he introduces a new topic and say, okay, line number 2 is blah, and then he'll go into the video sales letter. We highly recommend you doing that if you are comfortable on camera. So those are basically the big picture overviews of what's going on out there in the video sales letter world. And it still centers around the formula that you're learning today. We highly recommend that you start here, that you start with a textual or linguistic interrupt or an image interrupt and just get your script done. There's no point in dragging this out. Once you know that your offer is doing well, once you get it finished, once you put it online, once the generator is done with your video sales letter and you stick it online, at that point, you can start adding animation. You can add an animation intro. You can try a live video intro. You can try the warning sign. You might know that you need to do the warning right now. You could go ahead and do that. But in the generator, as you will see, I've left you an option to say, just leave this slide available for an animation or a warning or whatever. And then you just go right to the slide number 2 to start writing the first parts of your pattern interrupt. Now I want to show you the anatomy of a pattern interrupt so that you can build one yourself. The image interrupt is using a nightmare story. I prefer using nightmare story. I'm going to show you both, a nightmare story and tips as well. But I prefer using the nightmare story to create an image interrupt. Remember the fish and the jacket? Those are image interrupts. And and both of them, by the way, used my nightmare story. 2 different nightmare stories because I gave you 2 different examples. So here's how you do it. Step 1, write down 5 objects that are referenced in your nightmare story that have nothing to do with your product or service that you're selling. Do I sell jackets? No. Do I sell fish? No. Okay? That's what makes it a pattern interrupt. If I showed them a bottle of a supplement, or a supplement bottle or a scale or anything like that, that's too close to what I do. Okay? That's too close to what I do. So I'm going to show you how I literally did this in my own nightmare story. I picked 5 objects that have nothing to do with my product. So in my nightmare story, if you do not remember the story, you can download the transcript if you want, but I'll briefly cover the highlights of it. I was leaving work in a car. It was cold outside. I left my coat at home in the office, and we ended up at a convenience store. We drove by prostitutes, and I stole donuts. Okay, that's the long and short of it. So I'm going to take 5 objects from my nightmare story. Okay, what are 5 objects from what I just said? Well, a car, a jacket, that's where I hid my donuts in my jacket, prostitutes, probably not the best choice, a store, in this case a convenience store, and a donut. So why did I choose a jacket? Well, I could have chosen any one of those, but I chose a jacket because it doesn't have anything to do with weight loss. That's my product. Yet, it connects directly to my nightmare story. That jacket was how I snuck out the donuts. I snuck out the donuts by hiding them in my jacket and sliding down my pants at the same time. So the jacket ties perfectly into my nightmare story. So when I get to my nightmare story element, that whole loop that I just opened with a pattern interrupt, because they're just dying to know how that relates, is closed in the nightmare story. I'll reference it. I go, remember that magic jacket I told you about? Well, this is why that jacket was magical for me and why it's going to tell you everything you need to know. That jacket, I can go on about the jacket. That jacket caused me to do something horrible, but that jacket was also something that caused me to change my life. So I go into it like that. Now, I did not use a donut, okay? It's too close to food and dieting, although it could have worked with some creative writing. I'm not saying that it couldn't work, but I wanted to veer away from the donut because remember, people are hitting a diet site. I'm wanting them to see what they do not expect. So a donut, maybe a little too close. Although a donut on a diet site is a tad shocking. So with creative writing, it would have worked. So that's step 2 is to select the object. And then step 3 is to reference your object to the number 1 desire of your reader. Okay? Reference the object to the number 1 desire of your reader. In my case, that's weight loss. In your case, it could be anything. It could be paper shredding, dry cleaning. I want to ski better. I want to make more money online. Whatever their desire is, you reference it to their desire. Here's an example. This is a jacket, and this jacket is the secret to your weight loss. Or this jacket holds the secret to your weight loss. Or in a few minutes, I'll reveal how this jacket will give you the secret to your weight loss. It has to be their weight loss, not your weight loss, okay? So it has to be their skiing better. It has to be them making money online, them succeeding in whatever product or service that you are offering, okay? So all I've done is take the object that has nothing to do with the primary thing that I'm selling, and I relate it back to the primary desire of my reader. I don't relate it to what I'm selling. So if I'm selling a book on weight loss, I don't say, "In this jacket will show you why you should buy Every Other Day Diet." Well, that would be that's not a pattern interrupt. That's a suicide mission waiting to happen. So you don't want to do that. But notice how the jacket ties directly to weight loss. But you don't explain how. You explain how later, and your nightmare story helps explain how. This builds intense curiosity, creates a mental pattern interrupt, and it sets your viewer up for a specific suggestion. When your viewer is placed in a pattern interrupt, he or she is much more apt to have a suggestion implanted in their minds. This is why hypnosis works, by the way. Hypnosis is very similar to this. Hypnosis takes you into a certain state, and in a certain state, you are much more open to having a suggestion given to you. Bark like a dog, and people bark like a dog. Okay, well, you're not going to ask your viewer to bark like a dog. You're going to ask them a simple thing to do. You're going to ask them to do something very simple, and I'll show you what that is in just a few minutes. Before I go over to that, I want to go over the verbal interrupt because I promised that I would. So step 1, here's how you build the verbal interrupt. This is where you want to go back to your driving force behind your prime benefit in your USP. Before I go any further, now you see why you were doing all the USP homework before. Now you see why you had to pull out your prime benefit. What's the number one thing, the most unique thing that your product or service solves for your reader or your client? The most unique thing. That's your prime benefit. Now, how does that unique thing work? Well, it's the driving force. That's the driving force. I'm going to give you an example using my own, so it will refresh your memory, but this is why it's so important. Okay? So using the driving force behind your prime benefit and your USP, you want to write down the primary thing your viewer will discover while watching your video sales letter. That's it. What's the primary thing they're going to discover? Here's an example. This is right out of my Every Other Day Diet video that started this whole thing. You're about to discover one really old and kind of weird fat loss trick that I've used for years. This tip references my prime benefit. If you will recall, my prime benefit was the ability to eat your favorite foods and lose weight. Okay? It's referencing that tip, but it specifically references that tip's driving force. Why does that work? How can you eat your favorite foods and still lose weight? Well, the reason why it works is because you stagger your calories. You eat fewer calories for a few days, and then on the days where you eat more calories, you can consume your favorite foods like pizza. It works, okay? So that is the driving force, staggering calories. Now, all I've done is take that and worded it in an obscure way, worded it in a little cloak and dagger. You're about to discover, again, list of power words and phrases, one really old and kind of weird fat loss trick. It is kind of weird. It's kind of weird to say, you shouldn't eat the same foods, the same amount of food every day. In fact, some days you should eat ice cream. That's kind of weird. The reason I say it's kind of old is because human beings have been doing this for eons. For eons. 3 squares didn't happen until the Industrial Revolution. Okay? It was unheard of. People were always eating more and less, and obesity was practically unheard of. I'm telling you this so you can understand how I worded that sentence. So all you have to do for yourself is think about your driving force behind your prime benefit, and then take that driving force and relate it back to what their viewer will discover. So inside the video, they're going to discover blank. It can be 3 tips for this. It can be they'll discover the solution to blank, the solution to dry cleaning, the solution to paper shredding, the solution to being the best barefoot skier in the world, whatever it is. You're about to discover blank, and that's it. This is what you're about to discover. And then if you want to wordsmith it, you can say something like a very unique, an extremely unusual, one-of-a-kind blank. So this is how you wordsmith things. That is a verbal pattern interrupt. This can also be expanded out over 1 to 3 slides. So an example of that would be, you're about to discover one really old and kind of weird fat loss trick. I've used it for years. In fact, this tip has been passed around to over 300,000 people. It's helped hundreds of thousands of people lose weight for 10 years now. So I just expanded a little bit. You can expand it out over 1 to 3 slides if you wish. Hey, it's John Benson with an addition to the Snap Suggestion video. This is a new technique that I've been playing with and I want to share with you guys. It's called the triple interrupt, and excuse the image on the screen because that's exactly how I start one of the very first examples of a triple interrupt that you're going to see, and I'm going to use this as a case study. So don't worry, it's safe for work. It's not X-rated. I'm just going to use this example to show you what I said and how I said it in this particular opening for a triple interrupt. Then I'll explain how to do it. I've given you a few case study slides that you can use below. Inside the step 1, you'll see step 1, the classic interrupt, and step 1, the triple interrupt. And just use the slide 1, slide 2, slide 3. You'll see that. You can use the slide 1 for the classic, or you can use slide 1 for the triple interrupt if you want to use this option. So let's play this and I'll let you see what I did. My name is John Benson, and I want you to have a look at this. Now, a lot of people think that this is the oldest profession. I'm sure you've heard that before, but you know what? They're mistaken, and I'm going to tell you what the real oldest profession is inside this video, because it's very important to you, believe it or not. Now, when you combine the real oldest profession in the world with an odd video technique that was made popular in 1920, yeah, no kidding, that's almost 100 years ago, and you mix it with this, yeah, Harry Potter, not the movie Harry Potter or the character Harry Potter, something that Harry Potter does. Well, it can make you a lot more of this than anything else on the internet if you do it right. Okay, so what did I do there? I created, obviously, a triple pattern interrupt, and I ended with an image that I wanted people to walk away from. That is obviously money. That's one of the benefits of this particular product. And guess what? This product is actually the 3Accelerator Pro Touch program. So this is, now you can maybe unravel what I did here, but just in case you can't, I'm just going to go back here and show you. Okay, first, the oldest profession. That's the first image that people see. Obviously, that's shocking, and that's a little surprising if you come to a site that's talking about video sales letters. That's the whole point of a pattern interrupt. But what I tell them is that the oldest profession isn't exactly what they think it is. Now, that's a very clever way of doing a triple interrupt where there's a little bit more advanced tactics involved. In other words, I show them an image and say, this image is not what you think it is, but it's still an interrupt image. You don't have to do that, but you have the choice to do that. So I tell them that's not what this is, and I'm going to answer what the real oldest profession is inside the video. So where did I get this image from? Well, there's an old joke that says that prostitution is not the oldest profession because first it had to be sold. So selling is the oldest profession, and that's what I tell people later on in the video. Selling is the oldest profession in the world. So marketing, it had to be marketed first. So basically, I'm talking about the oldest profession in the world. It's been around since the dawn of ages, right? And it breaks the pattern, and it's kind of funny, and that's why I use it. So selling and marketing is actually the oldest profession. So that's what we're doing is we're opening a loop here. We're opening a loop with this image and saying, what are you talking about? We close the loop when we say, oh, I get it. So selling is really, that's where you're going with the whole prostitution thing. It's not prostitution, it's selling. And I say, now selling obviously in an ethical way. So that's interrupt number 1. Now let's take a look at interrupt image number 2, where I came up with it. Okay, this is interrupt image number 2. And I came up with this on a lark, really. I wrote down on a sheet of paper what my 3 images were going to be, what my interrupt images and ideas were going to be. Number 1 is the oldest profession. It's been around for ages. Number 2 is I said old is really kind of cool. So what if I could figure out an old method that was used to convey things via video that was used a long time ago? And I started brainstorming, and I just said, you know what was really old and what was really the very first video sales letter, if they weren't selling something, they were just having a movie, but silent movies when they had nothing but the words on the screen, and they didn't even have they didn't even have the vocals then. But that was kind of a crude version of a video sales letter, if you will, except for entertainment purposes. So that just sparked my curiosity about old movies, and I went on Google and found out that the first movie to use text of all the words was this bizarre old movie from 1920, or the 1920s rather, and it freaked people out. It made them like feel like they were hypnotized. That was, a lot of people were saying that it was a hypnotic experience. So that just played perfectly into video sales letters. So I used this image, and that literally came from that movie, which is kind of cool. That at least the slide did. So that was a slide from a very, very old movie. So then I said, okay, so when you combine what you think is the oldest profession with a very odd technique used in 1920, and that's that technique, and then I'll later come back and say, oh, that technique that I was talking about was the birth of slides, really, of text on a screen that made you feel hypnotized, that made you feel like you were glued to the screen. And that's what video sales letters do. Okay, so that's my second image. And then I resolve it with my third image, which I'll go over now. Okay, my third image is Harry Potter. You can use something famous, but you got to be careful of it if you run on Google or run on high traffic networks that you don't do something that's a copyright infringement. For this was a very, very low traffic thing, and I wasn't too worried about it because the qualifications to get into this level of ProTich was very high. Nonetheless, I used Harry Potter. Now, I could have used just a wizard, or something like that. But I said not, and it's really cool because I anchor Harry Potter, which is obviously a very famous character that everyone knows. And when you see this, you're like, wow, now I'm really confused. Well, I say it's something that Harry Potter does. It's not Harry Potter, something Harry Potter does. What does Harry Potter do? Well, he does magic. And inside the copy, I talk about how words can be used magically, not literally with literal magic like Harry Potter supposedly does, but seemingly magic. Words are that powerful. They are literally what I call magical words. Words can persuade, words can influence, words can change people's lives. They are magical. And that is the combination I was looking for. I was looking for the oldest profession in the world, which is marketing, the slides that came about for a long, long time ago and proved to be hypnotic even back then, and magical words all put together is a good description of what 3X Accelerator really is. And then I end this whole bit with this one image right here. And that's not an interrupt image. That's just a bonus or a benefit image. You can end yours the same way too. I say if you put all three of those together, it can result in blank. And in the templates that you'll see inside the slide drop downs, you'll see it can end in benefit or topic benefits. Well, what more beneficial thing is there in internet marketing than money? So that's one of the key benefits. So I just used an image. I could have just used the slides. And the majority of this, by the way, is just slides. I start off with these images, but it goes back to normal slides. So that is the triple pattern interrupt. You just have to resolve it inside your story. So the way and place that I resolve it is when I'm telling the story about how I got started, my own nightmare story, and I walk into the solutions and I go, now you're probably wondering what all the three weird images had to do with each other. And I show them all again so I can remind the viewer of what they just saw. And then I explain exactly what it is. Well, this is really this is really this is really this. Now that's one way to do it. Another way to do that is to resolve them one at a time. So like within a story, I'll say, perhaps you've heard that prostitution is the oldest profession. Well, remember this image, how I started this video? Well, I told you it wasn't the oldest profession. It's not. Marketing is the oldest profession. Then I tell the joke and I say, yeah, that's really true. And then I can go on and tell a little bit more of the story. And then I can say, now remember that really odd looking video clip I showed you? That was actually from an old movie called Blank. And this is what happened when they showed it. And that's very similar to what happens when people look at video sales letters. There's a little bit of hypnosis, not technically, but practically going on. And people tend to be glued to the screen. Those kind of things can be very, very powerful. So those are some ideas on how to resolve it and how to play it out within your video. A triple interrupt is really fresh right now, so you might want to try that. Or you can just stick to the classic interrupt that's worked for years for people that's also found within the Accelerator. Thanks a lot, and now start creating those slides.